ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're working with a pretty rigorous stack of sources. It's a comprehensive academic text designed for advanced students.
And we are really getting into it. The topic is one of the biggest out there: the philosophy of peace and conflict resolution.
It is, and our source covers all the classic frameworks, realist theories, idealist views, liberalist approaches to building peace.
But we're not just going to rehash those consult theories today. We want to go a layer deeper.
Exactly. We're going to focus on the root concept. What is peace itself? The source material calls it the Summum Bonum, the absolute good.
In many traditions, it's known as Shanti. And we kind of have to understand that building block first, before we can even look at the larger structures.
Right. And the first challenge the material throws at us is that peace. Even though it's this ultimate goal for humanity, it's not a commodity.
No, you can't buy it. You can't just hand it over. It's something else entirely.
And you see that play out in history. The source points to these huge moments, like big labor movements or even the start of World War I.
Where you had entire groups of people who felt so wronged, so caught up in injustice.
That conflict just felt like the only way out. Violence seemed like the only tool they had left to try and find a remedy. And when that happens, peace sort of takes a back seat.
What's really fascinating, though, is how the source immediately says peace is multidimensional. It's never, ever just about the absence of war.
I thought that was key, that true peace is tied to everything. An individual's economic situation, their political freedom.
Their physical health, their mental state, it's all connected, your security.
So even if there are no bombs falling, if you're living in, say, a financially precarious state or you feel totally marginalized politically, you can't really claim to have genuine peace.
Precisely. The internal state is just as critical as the external one.
So what's the core definition they land on?
They define Shanti as tranquility. It's the satisfaction of both body and mind. It's the direct opposite of sorrow, of pain, of discomfort. The text calls it refreshing tranquility.
Refreshing tranquility.
Yeah.
I like that. So to get there, the journey has to start from within.
It has to.
Okay, so let's unpack that internal framework.
Yeah.
Because the source gives this very specific and honestly pretty memorable roadmap for it. They call it the PEACE formula.
And it's not just some self-help list. It really is a distillation of these core virtues for self-management.
It's quite structured.
Very. It's a blend of ethical demands. And using a simple mnemonic like that, it suggests that peace isn't passive. It's something you have to actively cultivate every day.
Okay, let's start with the P. What does that stand for?
P is for purity. And the source is really explicit here, linking purity of thought, word, and deed directly to success, to even divine power.
Right, there's that quote from Swami Vivekananda, purity, patience, and perseverance are the three essentials to success.
The idea is that a pure mind is a clear mind. It's a mind that is capable of actually holding on to peace.
Okay, that's the foundation. What about the first E?
E is for endurance. This is all about resilience. Patience when things get tough. It's what stops you from falling into internal conflict when the external world is pressing in.
There was another quote for that one from Sri Masarada Devi, something like, no virtue equals endurance.
No wealth equals contentment.
Yeah.
And the analogies they use for this are just so powerful.
Oh, they really are. They ask you to think about the earth and how it endures being dug into.
Or a forest, which endures being cut down. Or a saint who endures, harsh words from others.
It frames endurance as this ultimate act of character building, refusing to let what's happening outside destroy your calm inside.
It's an act of strength. Then we have A for appreciation. This one is more outward-looking.
Valuing the good qualities you see in other people, giving them respect.
Which is a great way to preempt conflicts that come from, envy or just dismissing others.
Then C is cooperation.
Right. Actively helping out with any kind of welfare project or positive work happening around you. It integrates you into the social good.
And that leaves the final E, empathy. This one felt like the deepest to me.
Oh, it is. The example the source uses is of a mother who feels her child's pain, even from a distance, so intensely that the line between their suffering just blurs.
It's that blurring that's so important. Empathy dissolves the us versus them thinking.
Exactly. So you have purity, endurance, appreciation, cooperation, and empathy. That's your personal foundation.
That's the mental bedrock. But the moment you step outside of your own head and into society, the whole idea of shanti gets, well, it gets complicated fast.
It really does. The word peace is used for so many different things, from just feeling relieved to, global treaties. It creates a lot of confusion.
And the source tries to clear this up. They pull from the Sansad Bengali dictionary to list 8 specific contexts for the word.
And when you run through them, you see just how different personal peace is from social peace.
Let's touch on a few. What are they?
Well, they cover the full spectrum. It starts internally. So
Yeah.
number 1 is tranquility or calmness,
Mm.
mental peace. Number 2 is the absence of greed or passion, taming your desires. Then it moves into this functional kind of relief. Number 3 is relief or cessation, like the end of a disease.
And then it gets bigger, more external.
Right. Number 4 is the absence of trouble maintaining peace in a society, stopping a disaster. Number 5 is just the end, specifically the end of a war.
And what about the last few? They're more about the action, right?
They are. 6 is establishing peace, like with a settlement. 7 is the abstract concept of welfare. And number 8 is simply rest, lying down for peace.
Wow. The distance between ending a fever and ending a world war,
Mm-hmm.
it really shows you why this is so slippery politically.
It does. And the source cites a prayer from Rabindranath Tagore that just perfectly captures this desire for total peace, praying for the dawn to overcome the darkness, to vanquish all doubt and stop all debate.
It really draws a clear line then.
Yeah.
There's mental peace, which is all about personal management. If you can master those PEACE virtues, you're on your way.
But then there's social peace, which requires social management. And this is where the source gets very realistic. They say the human mind is just too volatile.
So 100% global peace is probably impossible.
Probably. But they're also very clear that the level of unrest we see in the world today is just. It's not acceptable.
And that gap, right, between the peace you can achieve inside yourself and the peace that seems impossible out in the world, that brings us to the core conflict in the whole philosophy.
This is where the big academic debate really lies.
So historically, you have these social reformers trying to build a perfect society. But they run into what the source calls the reformer's trap.
Yes. They basically linked social peace directly to social justice, to Naye. Their belief was simple. No social peace without social justice.
So their strategy was establish justice first, and then peace will just naturally follow.
Which, on the surface, sounds completely logical. It's morally sound. You fix the root cause, the inequality, and the conflict should stop.
But the source has a major problem with this.
A major one. They call that theory unusual and ineffective, just based on looking at history. They observe that when movements try to force justice, their actions often end up starting more violence, not creating peace.
So they trade one kind of instability for another.
Exactly. So the source flips the whole thing on its head. It presents this counter-argument that they root in natural law.
And their argument is that peace has to come first. It has to be the foundation.
The base stone, as they put it. You have to establish a state of peace, just a basic state of normality, before you can even begin to work on achieving justice or anything else.
They use that agricultural analogy, right?
They do, and it's a powerful one. You have to acquire the fertile ground first, that's peace. Then you can start cultivating it. You can start working toward justice. If you try to plant seeds in the middle of a storm, it's just chaos.
Okay, so this idea, peace first, it leads to what is by far the most controversial conclusion in the entire text.
It does. Since society is made up of these competing groups, they argue that for real peace, all the groups have to agree to the peace agenda first, which then leads to their best formula for stability,
Which is?
accepting the unchangeable status quo, the stita basta.
Whoa.
Yeah. The argument is that accepting the current reality, at least a non-violent version of it, is what maintains peace. Any attempt to fundamentally change the structure is what starts the violence.
Okay, let's pause on that because that is ethically massive. Is the source actually arguing that we should prioritize stability even if it means accepting systemic injustice?
Yeah.
How can they call inequality an irrelevant issue?
It is absolutely crucial to understand how they're framing this. It's presented as a pragmatic observation from history, not as a moral command.
Okay.
When they say injustice is irrelevant to peace, they mean it's irrelevant to the definition of peace. They argue peace has to be defined simply as a state of non-conflict, normality.
I see. So the problem is, if your definition of peace is a world where all injustice has been removed, well, you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
Because you're aiming for a target that's constantly moving and that everyone disagrees on.
You've got it. The source suggests peace efforts fail because they tie peace to all these other complex issues. History shows, they conclude, that demanding a perfect harvest before you've even secured the soil is just a recipe for endless conflict.
But that view puts them completely at odds with the modern consensus. I mean, we know the International Labor Organization's constitution says that lasting peace can only be built on a foundation of social justice.
That is the prevailing view today, absolutely, and the source acknowledges that. But it asks if that consensus is actually working in practice.
So they're questioning its effectiveness.
Yes. And they point out that great thinkers throughout history, from Aristotle to St. Augustine, even Bertrand Russell and Mahatma Gandhi, they all struggled with this exact tension.
How so?
They all held firmly to the path of peace and nonviolence as the absolute prerequisite, even while they were working nonstop to change the injustice around them.
So they're highlighting that philosophical divide, the practical need for stability versus the moral need for reform.
And it really boils down to that choice. Do you wait for a perfect world to have peace? Or do you define peace as the basic foundation you need to even start the long, hard work of building that better world?
And this source, based on its reading of history, concludes that foundational stability, the sade basta, is the only way to minimize violence right now, so you can work on justice later.
That's their argument.
This has been an intense dive. We've gone from the 5 personal virtues of PECE and the 8 dictionary meanings of the word right into this huge debate over peace as a foundation versus peace as a result.
And the key insight here for you listening is just how clear that fundamental disagreement is. Is peace the non-negotiable foundation, the fertile soil? Or is it the desired result, the bountiful harvest you get from a just society?
Our source material comes down hard on the side of peace as the foundation. It argues that stability, that unchangeable status quo, is the path of least violence. Now, considering that thinkers across the ages have struggled with this, here's a thought to mull over. What current societal injustice do you believe is most fundamentally hampered by the demand for stability and peace? It's a tension that continues to define our world.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support encourages me to create more content. Thank you.